Jeff Wyatt's Memorial Speakers Corner, London, 22nd of October 2022.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name, for those of you that don't know me, is Cara McCallum, and like so many of you here today, I was a friend of Jeff Wyatt. I'd like to welcome you, and especially those that have travelled a great distance to be here and to stand in Hyde Park on this autumn's day. I know that we have people with us from all over the country, and I think Jeff would be incredibly touched by the fact that so many of you have come along to honour his memory and to pay tribute to him today. I'd like to thank the people that are live streaming this memorial and would take this opportunity to welcome those who could not attend today in person, but who will be watching online. I would like to extend a particularly warm welcome today to both Lucy, Jeff's daughter, and Sasha, his partner, who are here with us today. When I set about organising this very simple memorial to Jeff, it seemed only right somehow to be here at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, where the freedom movement essentially began, what seems almost like a lifetime ago, and where Jeff had the rather dubious honour of being only the second person in the country to be arrested under the egregious coronavirus regulations 2020. So for Jeff, things in a way have come full circle. It started here, and very sadly, it will end here. As I look around, I see many familiar faces, many people that marched alongside Jeff and his famous huge placards on protest. Many people that stood shoulder to shoulder with Jeff as they were attacked by the police, acting as thuggish agents of the state instead of protectors of the people. I see many people that spoke on the same platform as Jeff in various towns and countries and cities all over England, and many people who were inspired by Jeff to join the freedom movement. The movement itself is a disparate group of people from all walks of life, all ages, all races, all religions, all social classes and political persuasions. We might never have met each other had fate not intervened and brought us together. But we each and every one of us share something that is special and uncommon, and that is the ability to see through the lies and propaganda that we have been bombarded with in these past few years. Equally, we share a love for freedom, truth, and justice, and from that stems a burning desire to fight against the absolute evil of the tyranny and techno-fascism that both the Great Reset and the New World Order represent. The bonds that we share are strong and have been forged in a very short time, even if we don't always agree about everything. We have found our tribe, and for those of us that have lost family members and friends because they mistakenly believe we are no more than deranged conspiracy theorists, this coming together of awake people is incredibly important, and not to be dismissed by defeatist tropes such as, "but nothing has been achieved." If this really was the case, and our protests have been for nothing, then why is the government hell-bent into bringing into law the draconian public order bill? We may not have achieved all we would have wanted to, but what we have done at the very least is to have brought like-minded people together and given them a voice. And we have started a great awakening, which can only gain more and more momentum as time goes on. Never forgetting that once people are awake, they cannot go back to sleep. And all it will take for this nightmare to ease is for more people to join us in simply saying, "No, no, we will not comply." Jeff was a unifying force, and it would mean a great deal to him that today there are people here representing many different parts of the resistance movement. Our enemies want us divided, of course, for when we are busy fighting each other, we are not coming together as a unified force to fight them, the shadowy people in the background, pulling the strings of the puppets in our government and conspiring to control us in every conceivable way, using false narratives such as COVID-19, man-made climate change and Ukraine, whilst pretending all the while that what is being done is really for our benefit and that of the community as a whole. The excuse of every tyrant that has ever lived. Jeff and I talked about how a life enslaved in the totalitarian dystopia the so-called elites have planned for us is a life simply not worth living, and that come what may, we would fight to the end on the basis that we would rather, both literally and metaphorically, die on our feet rather than live on our knees. Jeff led by example in this regard. He was an absolute warrior, a fearless, proud Englishman, a true patriot who loved his country and hated what was happening to it. Jeff was both a natural leader and an eloquent speaker. He was friendly, kind, and made time for everybody he met. He had courage in spades, an indomitable spirit, fortitude, and most of all, passion. Before he entered politics, Jeff had been a very successful international racing driver and a businessman, and he could have easily retreated these past few tumultuous years to enjoy a quiet, very comfortable life with Sasha, living in the countryside, walking his dogs, and taking his beloved classic cars to rallies and shows. But instead, he chose to devote a lot of time to being out in the streets with us. Jeff was always in his element at protests and rallies, and especially when he had a mic in his hand and was haranguing the powers that be, or for that matter any unfortunate policeman that happened to stray into his path when he was speaking. History will undoubtedly record that despite being in turn ridiculed, vilified, and discriminated against, it is we who have right on our side. And history will show the large part that Jeff played in the freedom movement in England. Jeff's very sudden, untimely, and I believe entirely preventable death at the hands of the NHS has devastated many of us on a personal level, and his death will also leave a huge void in the movement as a whole. Jeff was very much a force of nature, certainly never short of an opinion or two, and had so much more life to live and so much more to do. And the fact that his time with us was cut so very short is indeed a tragedy. But I believe that Jeff's spirit will live on in the movement. And I, for one, will miss him more than I can say. In the short time we knew each other, Jeff became like a big brother to me. We teased each other mercilessly. We didn't agree on everything, but we always had each other's backs. I will never forget his friendship and support, or the role he played in fighting for freedom and against tyranny. Surely the best tribute we can ever make to Jeff is to vow to continue the fight in his honour and to push on. And we push on regardless of how battle-weary so many of us are. It is no exaggeration to say that the struggle we face is one of truly epic proportions. The stakes could not be higher, because we are fighting possibly the greatest battle of all against the forces in evil and darkness for the very soul of humanity itself. We can't give up, and we won't give up, and that is exactly what Jeff would have wanted. Thank you. Thank you very much. This memorial today is very simple, as you can all see. There are no bells and whistles. We don't have a fancy stage or a sound system. That people in the movement who don't ordinarily speak have a chance to say a few words, if they wish, about Jeff. Obviously, we have a number of the well-known faces in the movement here. We have Nigel on my left from World Freedom Alliance, and Piers needs no introduction, and we have Fiona and other people here today. But I really would like today to be about not just hearing from the well-known, more prominent people in the movement, but I'd like to hear from anybody else who was maybe inspired by Jeff, or who has a funny story about Jeff, because there'll be a lot of them. But anybody who just wants to pay tribute to Jeff and to honour. So my idea was simply this, that we have somebody who's well known for the movement to speak, and then interspersed with that, with well-known people, we have anybody else that would like to come and say a few words. So I don't want anybody to feel press-ganged. I have a few people that I know want to speak, and I'm going to kick off with Nigel from World Freedom Alliance. Of us, that Jeff was in such good hands with John, who obviously officiated at Jeff's funeral, which was held on Monday. Thank you. Take the mic on many occasions and talk about my work, and in particular the fact that, along with a colleague, Melinda Main, I took a case to the International Criminal Court last year against the government and all its advisors for genocide, crimes against humanity, and breaches of all the Nuremberg codes. And I never did actually take the mic or give speeches, traumatized as I had been by the fact that when I was a very young child and was a brownie, I was asked to read the lesson in the church, which was a great honour. my mother was very chuffed that her daughter was going to be reading a lesson in the church. I memorised a lot of the piece, but not all of it. Got up, was called, went up, climbed up to the pulpit, peered over the top, only to find the vicar had forgotten to leave the Bible with the bookmark in the right place. And I was staring at some piece of text in the Bible I'd never seen in my life before. It had nothing to do with the nativity story. And I spent what seemed like hours just staring blankly into space, absolutely terrified, and not knowing what to do. So I did the only thing reasonable in the circumstances and burst into tears. So anyway, that was the beginning and that was the end of my public speaking until now. So I think if Jeff was here, well, if he was looking down, he'd probably be thinking, bloody hell, Kara, did I really have to die before you took the mic? Knowing Jeff's sense of humour, I'm sure that's what you would be saying, but the answer would be, actually, yes, Jeff, you did, because this in itself, me speaking, is a tribute to Jeff.
Thanks for tuning in to the Two Boomers News. If you like these videos, please share the link.